Okay, our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Radharao Gracious, a well-known lawyer, a former MLA. He's an advocate in the true sense. He is a thinker. He's a writer. He has advocated for various issues for social legal nature. His topic for today is one such similar issue, special status for Goa. I request Karishma Valvaikar to present a bouquet of flowers to Advocate Radharao Gracious.
Good morning, everyone. In particular, George Pinto, Ibonio, Akaria, and others associated with this morning's function. I generally prefer to speak without a paper on me, but unfortunately, as I grow older, my memory doesn't function as well as it was earlier. So I've got a few things written down for my reference. Now my subject is special status for Goa. In a way, I think the question is being raised half a century too late. You see, Goa was annexed, as the Supreme Court says, and liberated, as the politicians say, in December 1961. As a lawyer, I would go with the Supreme Court interpretation that Goa was annexed and not liberated. It was said so in the case of Father Sheikh Montero. Now, of course, the concept of annexation, liberation and annexation need not necessarily be opposed to each other, because we have been annexed to the Indian Union by conquest. That is what the Supreme Court says. And then liberation is a matter of interpretation. Now, why I'm saying we are 50 years too late is, you see, there should have been such a demand for special status immediately after December 1961, after liberation and annexation, whatever it is. Let me use the term liberation because we are more familiar with it. But somehow or the other, there was absolutely no response from the people at that time, or there was a little bit of response, but it wasn't strong enough. Unfortunately, in 1960, after liberation, Goa was split into two factions. One which felt that there was no such thing as Goa, because for them there was no Goa, there was something called Gomantak. And the others who thought and fought for Goa. So those who thought that there was no Goa, they formed a party called the Maharashtrawadi Gomantak, meaning Goa is Maharashtra. And we are all aware what happened thereafter. There was a very strong move to merge Goa with Maharashtra. So therefore, even to demand a special status, among us Goans, there should have been a single purpose, that we are Goans and we must get a special status. Tragically, it didn't happen. The record will show that a majority, and I'm saying majority of the Goa's Hindu population, for some reason felt that Goa doesn't exist, that Goa should be merged with Maharashtra. So consequently, there was an opinion poll in January 15, 1967. Results came on 16th. I think opinion poll was on 14th. To decide whether Goa should be merged with Maharashtra. And the result was, there was about a 10% difference, about 44-45% saying Goa should be merged with Maharashtra, and 54-55% saying Goa should retain its identity. Consequently, we are there as a separate state of Goa. Now, if you analyze the voting pattern, you will see that overwhelmingly those 45% who voted for merger were Hindus. There's no dispute on that count. You can see the votes booth-wise, constituency and taluka-wise. So in short, what happened was 75% of Goa's Hindus voted for merger with Maharashtra, almost 100% of Goa's Catholics, and overwhelming majority of Goa's Muslim, and around 25% of Goa's Hindus voted for non-merger. So finally, it was 45% for merger, 55% for non-merger. In other words, it was a very close fight, 6% difference. There wouldn't even be Goa. There would be Maharashtra. Forget about special status then. So this, unfortunately, is the history of Goa post-liberation, and the reason why we could not probably that time stand united, because we did not believe in ourselves. We felt there was no Goa. See, the trouble is, Goa, as it exists today, is an artificial creation by the Portuguese. If the Portuguese were not here, Goa would be just another stretch of the Konkan coast between Malwan and Karwar. And when the world talks of Goa, they talk of Goa as influenced by the Portuguese. You remove the Portuguese, there's no Goa. See, 450 years of Portuguese rule in Goa have created what you and I are today, radically different from the rest of the country. That is why people from all over the country come to Goa to enjoy themselves, to settle here, because they find that Goa is different. And it is different because the Portuguese were here, whether we like it or not, for 450 years. And they have had a tremendous impact on Goan lifestyles. So consequently, Goa is a special identity, in the sense it's different from the rest of the country. But as I have said, we did not watch for it in those days. Now let us look at the history of other Portuguese territories. Portugal remained in control of their colonies till 1974 or 1975, unlike all other colonial powers. The possible reason is that, you see, what happened was during the Second World War, Britain, France, and Netherlands were the major colonial powers before the Second World War. But the Second World War, although they were on the winning side, they were completely decimated. They lost their strength, physical, economic strength, to hold on to their colonies. And consequently, Britain had to withdraw from all its colonies, Netherlands from all its colonies, basically Indonesia, and French from French Indochina. But the Portuguese were not involved in the Second World War. They were neutral. Therefore, they were not much affected by the war. Their economy was not drained off. Consequently, they could hang on to their empire till the April Revolution of 1974. And soon after that, they gave independence to each and every territory of theirs. So now Angola is a separate country, Mozambique is a separate country, São Tomé and Príncipe is a separate country, Guinea-Bissau is a separate country. These are the Portuguese colonies. And on top of that, there is East Timor. Now, East Timor was granted independence by the Portuguese in 75. But within a month, the Indonesian army entered East Timor. Now, East Timor is actually the eastern part of the larger island of Timor. West Timor was Indonesian, or rather Dutch colony, which became Indonesian post-independence. And so the Indonesian army attacked Timor and made Timor one of the provinces of Indonesia, precisely the way that Goa was liberated and made one of the union territories of the Union. But there was a difference. The Timorese did not accept it. They fought. They had under Xanana Guzmão, Bishop Belo and others, José Ramos Horta and other leaders, they had a guerrilla struggle for freedom. And after nearly 25 years, a referendum was held, and 98% of the people voted for independence. And in Goa, mind you, forget independence. Even to accept the existence of Goa, only 55% supported. So therefore, East Timor is now independent. Now, all the Portuguese colonies except Macau are independent countries. Now, Macau is not independent because, unlike other territories, Macau, and for that matter Hong Kong, were territories which were taken on lease by the Portuguese and by the British. Hong Kong by the British and Macau by the Portuguese. And the Chinese somehow did not push Hong Kong, the British out of Hong Kong, nor the Portuguese out of Macau by use of military force, as it happened in India, in Goa. They waited till the treaty came to an end. And on expiry of the treaty period, both Macau and Hong Kong have been given a special status. Today, Hong Kong is a special status within China, so is Macau. They are practically democracies, unlike the rest of China. So the Chinese recognized that they were different, that they have developed differently, and maintained their status within the overall Chinese Federation or Chinese Republic. Unfortunately, in India also, it is not that there is no such provisions. In our own constitution, there are provisions for special status. The first special status was given to Jammu and Kashmir when it merged with India in 1948. There is Article 370 of the Constitution, which creates special status for Kashmir. And consequently, Kashmir today, you and I cannot go and settle in Kashmir. For all that matters, we cannot buy land in Kashmir. Now, again in 1962 or 1963, a special status has been granted to Nagaland. And today, in Nagaland, their tradition, their customs are protected by law, and above all, the land is protected. The land from Nagaland cannot be purchased by outsiders. In 1987, similar section 371G has been introduced in the constitution, by which Mizoram has been given similar protection as Nagaland. But there is a difference, why Nagaland got it and Mizoram got it, why we didn't get. You see, the Nagas had been at war with the Republic of India for years together. You must have heard of Zapu Angami Fizo, leader of the Naga National Front and all that, NNF. They were fighting for independence. Finally, they couldn't fight. They entered into a settlement, and part of the settlement, they got special concessions. The same thing happened with Mizoram. The Mizo National Front under Lal Denga fought. Finally, government of India called them for talks and granted them a special status in 1987. So therefore, those who fight get their rights, and those who, like us, go and stay home, Sussegat, get nothing. We move over to Mississauga and Missouri and to Swindon and London and Melbourne and Lisbon, and then come occasionally to see their patrimony in Goa, whole convention. This is what is happening. Our people are simply running away. So, see, in order to get something, you have to stand up and fight. And I will give you a more conventional immediate this. I think you are all aware of what is happening in New Delhi these days. The unfortunate incident where a young girl was raped, and I believe she has died today. Now, rape in India is not something uncommon. It's regular. If you read today's Herald, you will see one item in the inside pages. One Adivasi girl was kidnapped and raped over 10 days by 10 different people. Today's Herald, I read it before coming here. She was an Adivasi girl. And that gets a half a paragraph mentioned in the Herald. But for the last 15 days, the press, the TV, the parliament, the courts have been seized with the rape in Delhi. In other words, the Delhi rape has got special status. Special status rape in Delhi. Unfortunate incident, but the status is special. All other rapes that take place, trial takes 100 years. This Adivasi girl is just languishing there. See, what I'm trying to point out is Goa is like this Adivasi girl. No one cares for us. Delhi is being the capital, 15 days, nothing but special status. See, this is the trouble with the country. If your attention, if things happen within your attention place or span, you get special status. And if you are like us, just sitting back home. No, our questions will later on, Baba. Let me speak.
You're talking about special status. I don't think many people in the room know what special status actually is.
Yeah, I will come to that. Yeah. To get special status, you have to draw special attention. Unfortunately, we have not been doing. Now, special status, as Leon has said, see, special status is what Nagaland and Mizoram have got under Article 371A or Article 371G of our Constitution. In other words, there is already provision for special status in the Constitution. It is not that it is something different. Now, what that special status is, they have created certain rights in the peoples of these states. For instance, now, in Nagaland and Mizoram, you and I cannot go and purchase land. Only the Nagas can purchase the land. And that is a major problem in Goa. The major problem in Goa is, now in Nagaland, only the voters will be the local people. Consequently, if you must have land, you must live there to be able to vote. In Goa, what is happening? We are finding ourselves completely overwhelmed. For which part of you are responsible? Because you leave Goa and create a vacuum. And vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum. That vacuum has to be filled up. So when our people leave, others come in. At the same time, we don't want outsiders to come in. I mean, this is what is happening. This is the reality. I come from a village called Majorda. Half of my village is abroad. Half. So normally, whenever I meet someone, Are kyadon illo? When did you come? That's the question asked. Or kyadon hoita? When are you going? In fact, we are a handful of us there now, our regular fellows. The rest, all my colleagues, classmates, friends, everybody is abroad. See, this is what is happening. When our people leave, they are leaving because they have no faith. I know that. I know the Catholics in Goa do not have faith in the system or in the government, and with valid reason too. But then, unfortunately, people are running away, and the consequence is that others are coming in. So what special status would mean is that, see, in Nagaland and Mizoram, government has protected their laws also. Now, that protection is there for us, not because the government of India has protected it. Goa is the only state in the Republic of India which has a common law. You see, in Goa, the Portuguese had a common civil code. You don't look at each other's religion. A Hindu or a Muslim or a Catholic in Goa, we follow the same law. I can have a Muslim in Goa can have just one wife. But if you cross Goa's border, you can have 4 wives. You see, in India, what happens is, elsewhere out of Goa, each community has its own law. So here we don't need protection because we have a common law which has been protected. Because the Constitution of India itself says, directive principles of state policy, that the state shall strive to have a common law. And we have been striving since 47. Nothing is happening. And we will strive for the next 500 years also. We will still strive. Because in our country, no one is willing to do things which are necessary, but which may not be politically productive. That's the unfortunate thing. They are necessary for the good of society, but they are not politically productive. So therefore, you do nothing. That's the unfortunate part of our democracy here. Now, have I answered your question about special status? Yes. We would like that to protect and preserve Goa. For that, we need some assistance from the Union government by creating something like Article 371A or 371G. But as I have said, we may be too late on this aspect now. Now, again, there was another colonial power in India, just like the Portuguese. The Portuguese were holding Goa, Daman, and Diu, and the French were holding 4 small parcels of land. Together, they are called Puducherry today, or Pondicherry. They were holding Pondicherry, Yanam, Karaikal, and Mahe. Mahe is on the Kerala coast, and Pondicherry, Yanam, and Karaikal are on the east coast, that is on the Coromandel coast. Now, these are separate, isolated places, but they form one territory, one union territory. And in 1962, the government of India signed a treaty of cession with the French. And under this treaty of cession, rights of the Pondicherry people are guaranteed. A number of them have still maintained French citizenship, and they continue to live there. They vote in the French presidential elections. They don't know a word of French. They still speak French. But they have been given the right to live in Pondicherry as French nationals without their lands or their rights, other rights being affected. They only do not have voting rights. In other words, certain rights have been given. That is because Pondicherry joined the republic by way of a treaty between the two governments. Unfortunately for us, it was military action by which Goa was taken over. The Portuguese refused to accept Goa as part of India till the treaty was signed in 1975, after the April Revolution in Portugal. Now, that is the point of time that something the Portuguese government has signed a treaty, but they have considered Goa fully. No rights have been reserved. That time the Portuguese were to work out and demand that certain status should be given to Goans. Maybe it could have been worked out. But unfortunately, the treaty was signed between Mahari Suarish and Indira Gandhi, I think, and that's it, the prime ministers of the two countries. But the Portuguese have given Goans special status. And that is another big tragedy now. That is another big tragedy. You see, the Portuguese constitution, or the law of nationality, grants Goans, and Goans are the only people from the Portuguese colonies who have this right to get Portuguese nationality even today. So consequently, the Portuguese recognize Goans, they give them a special status. But we don't get any special status after the liberation, or whatever you call the liberation. But they give us special status. Today, every Goan who was born prior to 1961, or the descendant of those who were born prior to December 61, are eligible for Portuguese nationalities. And it is unfortunate, because almost everyone is now making Portuguese passports and traveling all over the world. And we are losing our own identity here. And in fact, today, in the current assembly, there are 2 MLAs who may have to be disqualified, because one of them, there's already a petition. He's registered in Portugal as a Portuguese citizen. And the second fellow, Glenn Souza Ticlo, I am in the process of filing a petition as a lawyer from some party in the next week. So 2 MLAs may be disqualified because they are Portuguese nationals.
What's wrong with having another passport?
Beg your pardon? No, these questions I would prefer to answer later. I will finish and then you can ask me questions, whatever extent I can. Yeah. So consequently now, we do not have any status, and if you opt for Portuguese, even to register your birth in Portugal, you may lose your status. Now, what should have been done, and what in the interest of the country overall, a better system would have been a special status for every state, because India is not exactly a nation in the sense of nations in Europe. A nation generally is a homogeneous group of people who think alike, who have a common language, common culture, common everything. And they form a nation. That has been the standard practice. By that definition, India is certainly not a nation. We are a country. We are a political unit. We are a conglomeration of at least 15 or 20 nationalities. And this is a situation which even the Chinese recognize. China, they say, is a nation of 56 nationalities. But here somehow, if the moment you talk of yourself, you are deemed anti-national. I am one of those who are generally deemed anti-national here. Because if you stand up and talk what you feel is right, you are immediately unpatriotic and anti-national. And if you are a Catholic, even more so. Because then you have to prove that you are a national. If you are Hindu, you are deemed nationalist. I mean, that is the unfortunate part here. So the moment, fortunately for me, my first name sounds nationalist. The second name is a bit doubtful, my surname. See, this is the tendency in Goa. I can go and settle in Bombay, come and vote in Goa. Likewise, a man from Uttar Pradesh or Karnataka settles here, he can settle, he can work, but go and vote back in your state. See, the difficulty today is Goa is a small place. We are 1.1 million in a total population of 1.2 billion. Just imagine that. That means the population of India is more than the population of entire American continents, right from Alaska down to Tierra del Fuego, right from Alaska to Argentina. If you take all the people together from America, we still are more people in Goa, in India. And more means much more, at least 400 million more. So the situation is such that in a place like this, we get overwhelmed. So best thing, if the settlers had no rights here, no politician would create slums here. If Digambar Kamath has created slums at Moti Dongor because they have votes and they are vote banks. These people vote for you because you are protecting them. If you do not give vote to slum dwellers, if they are told you go back and vote in your state, then there would be no slums and Goa would be better off. People can come and work here, I have no difficulty there. But you are giving them a vote and they are destroying the state. You see, such a provision should have been there at a national level where you can go and settle anywhere, but don't go and destroy that place. Our fate must be in our hands. We go and decide what is good for us. But unfortunately, you see, no one listens to people like us. We are fools or unpatriotic or things like that because we don't reach that far. Now, another thing is, now Government of India has come up with something called OCI. I think some of you have OCI, Overseas Citizenship of India. Now, I see no reason for OCI.